Okay, for those of you who are tuning in and I say Dr. Perlmutter, everybody's going to be looking at Dr. Perlmutter going, wow, he is really looking good. And that's because it's the next generation. Dr. Austin Perlmutter is in the classroom to talk to us about Brainwash, his new book that he's co-wrote with Dr. David Perlmutter. Both now I've got the father and the son in the classroom. And so we are going to learn and grow together. So fasten your seatbelt and let's get ready to dance. Here we go.
The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for you.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening friends. So nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful best day ever. And for those of you who this is the first time that you're tuning in, please know that I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friends on Facebook.com/Lillian's radio show, my teacher's pets, feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, today we have a new dream. Our brain, we want to keep a healthy brain. And we want to do what's right. But there's just so much out there that is considered, and the new terminology is fake news. And so how do we know what we're learning is real? And so many of us, from the moment we're conceived to the moment that we are adults, and maybe even after that through our entire life, we are taught certain things. And sometimes we're a little brainwashed. We're a little controlled. It's mind control. It's whatever we see, we believe is true. And what I've said to you in the classroom, even if I say it, even if my guest says it, research it for yourself. And that way, it's not my truth. It's not our teacher's truth. It is your new truth. It is something that you've researched. So now be curious instead of critical. Always be skeptical, but in a healthy way. Say, this resonates with me, or it doesn't resonate with me. Why? And then do the research. Everything we discuss in the classroom is something that you can check out and verify. There's different sources that you can. So today we are so excited that we have Austin Perlmutter, MD. So Dr. Perlmutter. And of course, when you hear the word Perlmutter, you think of Dr. David Perlmutter, but we have the next generation Perlmutter that is, they say that our children do better than their parents. And hopefully that's what we want as children. And I am excited to be able to interview Dr. Austin Perlmutter, because he's going to share with us how to protect our brain, how to make sure that we detox what is not true for us, and how to create long-lasting happiness. There's so much we're going to speak about today. So since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Dr. Austin Perlmutter is here to do just that. Welcome, Dr. Perlmutter, to the classroom.
Lillian, thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. When I saw the name of the book, Brainwash, I thought, what a great title, because I think many of us, for the most part, have been brainwashed by the media and
Mm.
any special interest group. So share a little bit about your background and what made you think that it was timely. This is a timely topic.
Well, when you started this, you mentioned how important it is to question, how it's essential for us to think about what is and isn't helpful to us before we take it as gospel.
Mhm.
And questioning is what started this whole process of this book. I was sitting down with my dad after finishing up my medical training in internal medicine, and the two of us were talking about this problem we have, which is we see patients in the clinic and we tell them, here's what you need to do to be healthier. And the patients agree. They say, yes, I definitely want to lose weight. I definitely want to start exercising.
Mhm.
And then they wouldn't do it. It just wouldn't work out. And it wasn't just us. Doctors in general find that when they make recommendations to patients, they don't follow through. And that's anywhere from half of the time when it's for medications to up to 80% of the time when you're talking about lifestyle interventions, things
Mhm.
like changing your diet, things like exercising. And so we had this question, which is, why aren't people following through with the plan? And
Hmm.
we thought about it for a while, and we realized that there's something we've been missing this whole time. And that is, it's the decision-making apparatus. What do I mean by that? Well, when you think about what enables you to follow through with the plan, it's your brain. But we don't spend any time thinking about how our brains are either set up to let us follow through or set up to make it hard for us to make good choices. And so we came up with this idea of kind of the brain wash, which is there are so many influences in the modern world which take us away from making good choices. They wire our brains for things like stress, and they create inflammation in our brains, which
Mhm.
makes it so hard for us to follow through. We needed a brain wash. We needed to actually wash that stuff out of our brain in a positive way. Yes,
Mhm.
understanding that we have been brainwashed in a negative way, but here's the empowering part of it. Through neuroplasticity, we get to determine how our brains are wired. And with this connotation of brainwash, you should feel like you can take back your brain for the life that is far more in keeping with what you actually want.
I love it. I love it. And so why now? So why, how long have you, let's talk about when you graduated, how long you've been a medical doctor. And so,
Sure.
yes, go ahead.
Well, I've been a medical doctor, I'd say, for a little over 4 years at this point. And that would be at the end of medical school, you get your MD, your medical doctorate. And then I did a 3-year residency in internal medicine, which for viewers out there who don't know exactly what that means, I liken it to general medicine. Internal medicine doctors sometimes specialize, become cardiologists, gastroenterologists, pulmonologists, and sometimes become primary care doctors, and sometimes become the doctors you see when you get admitted to the hospital with something like pneumonia. So that's kind of my background in this whole thing. And it was general medicine, seeing that so many of the problems that people had in my clinic or in the hospital were related to these preventable conditions.
Hmm.
Things like heart disease, things like diabetes, things like high blood pressure, even things like dementia. And understanding that these are diseases we know how to prevent for in many cases, and yet we're not able to do that. And so this information started to inform my perception of how is this medical system working. I mean, the bottom line is we all know not too well. But in the bigger sense of this, it's not just about diabetes. It's not just about your heart disease. It's more about the way we approach the world and how many of these problems that we have, even things like anxiety and depression, and even things like loneliness, are really very preventable, and that we have those tools. So it's not just a question of knowing the information, though. It's a question of, do we know how to put that into action? That, again, is really what the book is about.
Yeah, and very much. And you're very encouraging in your book as well. But here's the deal, Dr. Perlmutter. When you go to the doctor, and I've said this so many times, I'm going to say it again, and perhaps maybe you have some insight on empowering our viewers and our listeners as well. Many times the doctors that we entrust don't know how to take care of themselves. And they'll say, oh, you need to change your diet. Well, how? How do I change my diet? I just went to a place today where a doctor I had a plant-based shake, and I said, would you like to try it? And they said, oh no, I do not eat any plants. I do not eat any fruits. I only eat meat. And I'm thinking, I didn't say it. Wow, that's just like the great combination for colon cancer. But I didn't say that. So many doctors have the license to lead the sheep astray. And many doctors don't know how maybe their information may not be complete. Could you elaborate on that? Because I always say, fire your doctor.
Sure.
If they can't take care of themselves, how are they going to take care of you?
Well, you make a lot of good points here. And I think it's quite clear that when it comes to mental health, let's say, doctors are no better off than the general population. And there's good data suggesting that doctors, medical students as well, residents as well, experience much higher rates of anxiety and depression than the general public. There's data that suggests that doctors kill themselves twice as often, they commit suicide twice as often as the general public. So it's not like we are creating these balanced physicians. I think that when it comes to the advice that doctors are giving patients, it's really limited, because when you think about what our training entails, we don't necessarily learn how to use diet to treat patient conditions. Most of our training in the clinical setting is how to prescribe certain drugs for certain conditions. That is the way the billing codes are set up for insurance. And that is the way the pharmaceutical industry teaches us through their supplements, or through their pharmaceuticals, that we can treat patients. Now, sometimes that works. I know that if a patient comes in with a blood pressure of 240 and they're experiencing a headache, and I'm worried about a hypertensive emergency, the right thing to do is give them a medication, a pharmaceutical medication to bring down their blood pressure. But the truth is, in the clinical setting, most of the time it's not an emergency. Most of the time, these conditions we see, things like obesity and things like even just standard high blood pressure, are things that have been building for a while. And those are conditions that are created by poor decisions. So when you think about what it's like to go into the doctor and you say, here's my problem. My problem is I'm overweight. My problem is my blood sugar is too high. My problem is I have arthritis. The doctor thinks, well, I have 15 minutes. What can I tell this patient? If they want to make a lifestyle intervention, which again, we all are told we should try, we tell the patient, you should lose weight, eat less food. And here's the billing code, and see you in a month or two when that doesn't work out. That's the setup. It's not really the fault of doctors. It's just, this is the system we grew up in. So again, you think about, what are we doing to address these problems, which have developed over the course of years? We're telling patients something like, you should eat less, you should exercise more. And, I can't speak to everyone, but I don't think a lot of people are showing up at the doctor's office who are overweight, let's say, and are thinking to themselves, I never thought of that. I never thought I should just eat less food or exercise some more.
Sure.
And so then it's not really a problem with information. The patient, I guess, has that information already. And that means we're left with willpower. So if the patient doesn't lose weight and they come back in 3 months, the doctor says, I told you to eat less and exercise more. Did you do it? Patient says, no. And the doctor says, well, you must not have enough willpower. I'll write in the chart that the patient was non-compliant with the plan that I recommended. And you basically get what we've got, which is all of these people suffering from chronic diseases and not making too much progress. So what we're trying to do is say, what else is there? What are these pieces that we've maybe not put into the puzzle? And the fundamental piece that we talk about in Brainwash is, when you make a choice, either good or bad, and that may be deciding to go to the gym, or on the other hand, deciding to eat a bag of potato chips and watch a full season on Netflix, that is determined by how your brain is set up. And so you don't want to leave it up to the last minute so that you say, oh, I really should go to the gym right now, or I should sit here and watch this TV show. You want to wire your brain so that in a week from now, or a month from now, when you wind up in that same situation, your brain is on your team and it says, we're going to the gym. And you say, fantastic, that's what I wanted all along. And there are interventions that everyone can make to start improving their brain function today, and also to understand how aspects of the modern world can rewire our brains for us in a pretty negative way, in a way that keeps us hooked on things that don't actually help us.
Yes, yes. So let's talk about that. You have an acronym called TIME, and it stands
Yeah.
for time, intention, mindfulness, and enrichment. So let's talk about, how to start rewiring the brain, how to wash the toxins out, the false information that we have been given and that we have adopted in our own life as truth. And let's talk about how we can swap that and wash it out so that we can replace it with where our brain is working on our side.
Right. Well, I think first of all, we have to start with questioning, because unless we question, we're going to assume we're doing things okay.
Mm-hmm.
The average American spends 4 hours a day watching TV, another
Wow.
2 hours of their day on their phones and looking at other screens. And so I'm not telling people you shouldn't go online. We're able to have this conversation right now because we're online.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not telling people they shouldn't use their phones. Phones are amazing. When I get stuck somewhere, a map on the phone is sometimes the only thing that gets me back. But we've got to question, what are we doing with all this time we spend on our phones? Is it actually beneficial to us, or is it maybe taking something away? Is it mindful time? Is it mindless time? And so things that we talk about in the book are, if we're constantly exposing ourselves to news, which in theory is informing us, but in reality is just causing us stress,
Mm-hmm.
that's not necessarily a benefit to us. If we're spending hours of our day on social media, which we justify as saying, hey, I want to connect with my friends, but really what we're doing is scrolling mindlessly and becoming stressed because we see everyone else's perfect life, that's not necessarily in our best interest. So we came up with this acronym, which you mentioned, which is the test of time. And so what you want to do is apply this 4-letter word every time you engage with your digital environment.
Okay.
And that is T. You want to make it time restricted. So meaning you don't just say, I'm going to turn on the TV and we'll see what happens. I'll see what 3 hours later, I'll turn it off and say, wow, I just spent most of my free time today watching TV. So
Yeah.
if you want to watch TV, that's fine. But set aside a 30-minute window or however long that TV show is. And then once that time is over, your alarm goes off and you kick yourself out and remember, oh, there are other things that I want to do with my day.
Mm-hmm.
I is for intentional. So that means that you're not just casually finding yourself scrolling through an hour of social media. If you want to go on social media, have at it, but have a plan. So that means if you use Instagram for your business account and you want to check in on what people are saying, respond to some messages, maybe see what some of your competitors are up to, that is a plan. That's very different from just opening up the app and then scrolling on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings us to M, which is mindful, in that you want your technology use to be mindful. And I know firsthand, it is really easy to get caught in mindless use of digital technology, whether that's something like a YouTube video queue or again, Instagram or Facebook. I want to make sure everyone understands it's not that social media is bad. It's not that watching TV is bad. It's not that your computer is bad. It's that it's not set up necessarily to be good either. And so if you are spending all of this time mindlessly scrolling through this, when you could be spending time with your friends, getting outside, exercising, preparing a meal, you've got to consider the pros and cons. And then the last one is E for enriching. And what do I mean by that? Well, this is probably the most important one, and it's probably the easiest one to tell whether or not it is actually abiding by this E, enriching. Once you're done with a digital experience, take a quick beat, take a pause, and you'll know whether that was an enriching experience. You don't have to lie to yourself and say, oh, well, you'll know. And I, again, have had so many moments where I sign off and I go, oh my goodness, not a good use of my time. So you want to figure out, is this a net positive in your life? And if the answer very well might be no, then that's the time to say, how can I change my plan so that next time I'm engaging with the TV or the computer or the smartphone, I tweak it so that I'm actually benefiting from it. And so the technology isn't just benefiting from my attention, potentially my money, and all my time I've spent looking at these screens.
It's simple, doesn't it? It sounds so simple, but yet time is a bandit. We just lose that time. I know that I've said, oh my God, I can't believe an hour has gone by where did the time go? And so suggestion would be to set an alarm. You said set yourself a time.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing in the morning. I'll set a timer. Let's say I want to spend 5 minutes total on social media responding to messages. It goes by really fast.
It does.
But one thing that happens is when that alarm goes off, a lot of the time I'm already off in the black hole of scrolling through whatever else.
I hear and obey.
It's designed. Yeah, it's literally designed to capture our attention.
Yeah.
And so I think there's this fallacy that we believe we're still in charge, even though people are spending their waking hours, professional jobs, doing everything they can to keep us engaged with this technology. So we need to have these fail-safes in place. Otherwise, we're going to get what we've got, which is, again, people are spending hours and hours of their day interfacing with these technologies and not necessarily getting a whole lot out of it.
Well, let's talk about what happens to the brain when we're mindlessly surfing through the net, mindlessly spending our time, and there's things we've got to do. I mean, who doesn't have things to do that's being robbed and taken away by just doing nothing?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that we can always find time for an hour or two on social media. It seems like it might cut into our sleep. It seems like it might cut into our time with other people, but there are these subtle ways that we can justify it. Now, what we know is that if you are going to be spending time on, let's say, social media, that if you're doing it in an active way, meaning you're interfacing with other people, you're commenting on their posts, that seems to be more associated with well-being than passive use of social media. Passive use of social media is that mindless scrolling where you're just sitting there on your phone 10, 15 minutes, where you snap out of it and you really couldn't say, here is exactly what I just did. It was just kind of a time trap that you didn't plan for, but just happened. But coming back to what I was saying before, we find that our engagement with these platforms is cutting into the meaningful stuff. And I mentioned sleep. Sleep tends to be something that we marginalize. We think, okay, well, I'll get everything done that I need to get done for the day, and then I'll fill in whatever hours are left with sleep. So it's really easy to be sitting there on your couch and it's time for bed, but you watch another show because that show is a whole lot more exciting than laying in bed. But, my dad and I talk about this a lot. We used to talk about sleep as downtime, but it's not. It is uptime. That sleep is doing so much for your brain. And when it comes to the whole idea of a brain wash, with the recent discovery of this lymphatic drainage system, which is literally this cleaning system that happens within your brain, and the fact that that is activated by as much as 60% more, or that cleaning out opens up 60% more during sleep, we know that sleep is absolutely essential in allowing our brains to function at their optimal level. And so we've got this evidence for it cleaning out the gunk, the metabolic byproducts of the day. But also, oh, by the way, sleep improves your memory function. Sleep improves and lowers your emotional reactivity. Sleep is, in essence, essential to so many different systems in the body functioning at their highest level that we should be taking advantage of this, as opposed to designating sleep as, again, something we'll figure out at the end of the day if and when time permits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that's one of the things that I would like for you to share, which is what does happen to the brain if we continue to neglect that time, quote unquote, acronym. If we continue to neglect when we are like in a zone, what's happening to our brain? You're talking about sleep, and I never thought of the brain having a lymphatic system. I know that the body has a lymphatic system, but I never thought that the brain also had a lymphatic where that needed to be coming out. So what is happening to the brain when we're wasting our time on things that don't really matter?
Well, in the best situation, nothing. There's no growth. There's nothing going on. Now, a lot of worse things than nothing are probably happening. So if you take that 4-hour window, let's say you're watching TV and you watch the most mindless TV show possible, let's say you just put your brain on pause. That is time you could be spending building a brain that allows you to be better at your job, or to develop better relationships with your friends and family, or to develop better relationships with yourself. So that's, again, best case scenario. It's just wasted time. What I'm much more worried about, though, is what happens to the brain under conditions of stress. Chronic stress disables our ability to use our higher level thinking. And so this is research that's come out of a researcher from Yale named Amy Arnstein, where she has, in essence, gone through and shown all of these amazing animal studies where they take out neurons from mice and other animals that have been exposed to chronic stress. And what you see is that the neurons in the front of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, that are essential in enabling us to make good decisions, they kind of retract and shrivel up. And the neurons in another part of the brain called the amygdala, which is a center of the brain involved with fight or flight and stress, they love it, right? This is giving them stress. That is like their fuel. So they branch out, they get bigger, and the brain starts to set itself up for making decisions or making impulsive actions based on these stress pathways. So when you think about what's happening in humans, you'd say, okay, well, those are animal studies. But what we've seen is that humans exposed to long periods of stress actually have a smaller prefrontal cortex. That part of the brain is physically smaller on imaging. And there's less connection between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, which means that you're basically having that stressful part of the brain acting without any supervision. So trying to bring that back into this whole idea of our digital technology, you could have mindless digital technology, and then you could have what I believe a lot of news is, what a lot of social media does, what a lot of our screen time on our phones can do, which is it induces stress, it induces fear, it induces anxiety. So our brains are amazing. They have this plastic ability to basically change in response to our environment. If you're putting all of that negative news, all of that stressful, anxiety-enriched news and other digital content into your brain is going to set itself up to be better at handling, I shouldn't say better at handling, it'll be a more stressed brain. So it is going to be a brain that wakes up in the morning and says, you know what I'm really good at? Being stressed. Let's go do that. And it's going to, before bed, say, you know what I do is I get stressed and I stay stressed. So you're going to have trouble sleeping. So the ripple effects of this type of exposure are really significant, and it impacts every aspect of our life. It makes us then less likely to have good relationships, because when we don't get enough sleep, we're more emotionally reactive. It makes us less likely to consolidate memory. It makes us less likely to be able to focus on the things we need to focus on to do well at work, to do well in our, again, relationships, to do well with, let's say, financial decisions. So we've really got to think about this, which is anytime you're paying attention to something, that is changing your brain. And maybe it's not doing much, but in the case of being exposed to stressful media, that is probably setting you up for a whole lot of problems, diseases throughout the body, but also a brain that makes poor decisions.
Very well said. So as Dr. Perlmutter was speaking, I'm thinking, you know what? I haven't even told you guys that we're giving away some books today. So I want you to send me a message or let me know that you want a book, and type it into, and if you have any questions for Dr. Perlmutter, type in a Q and ask your question, and we'll share it with him before the end of the class. And so if you would like a copy of this book, just write it on the comment page that you want. Send me, also share it with a friend, like it, tag it, all those things that we need to do to increase that engagement. It's so good for you. It's important that there be that exchange and that engagement that is better than just sitting there doing nothing. So if you would like a copy of this book, I don't remember how many books are we giving away. Is it 2 or 3? Couldn't remember. Do you remember, Dr. Perlmutter?
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Yeah, Brooke, please, if you're watching, please let me know. Okay, so I'll find out, but just go ahead, put your name, send me a message on instant, send me an instant message, and we'll get that. What I'll do is I'll get everybody's name that has said that they want a copy of this book, and in 24 hours, I will make sure that I put all your names in the winner's basket, and then I'll pick however many are going to be getting. We'll coordinate that after the class. So I'm sorry I didn't check that with Brooke. And so make sure you let us know that you would like a copy of the book, whether you're watching on YouTube or on or listening on podcast, iTunes, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, all the whatever, wherever you're listening. Just make sure you send me a message within the next 24 hours. And then I will put your name in the winner's basket, and we'll pick how many they tell me that we will give, and then I will let you know if you are the winner. But make sure you tag and you write down that you want a copy of this book as well. And while we're at it, make sure you also become a subscriber at whenyouneedafriend.com. Go to whenyouneedafriend.com, subscribe, and while you're there, check out all my social media and like, follow, and subscribe my YouTube channel. There's so many different ways to stay connected. And of course, this kind of information is mindful because it will help you make better decisions for yourself, because now you have informed choice and whatever that is that you would like. And so while you're there, I ask that you reach out and click on the sponsors page. Sponsors are so important to the classroom because without them, there would be no classroom. Sponsors like Liberty Health Share, go to the little libertyhealthshare.org, the little icon there. Keep Me Safe Organics, which is all natural, non-synthetic beauty products, organic. Enter Lily 10, get 10% off. As you know, there's so many different ways that you can benefit by being a subscriber, which is all the little discounts that you get as well. First Alternative Care, which is 24/7 non-urgent care, dermatology, non-urgent care or family practice, dermatology, and 3 hours a year of behavioral health counseling for the entire household for $45 a month. Dr. Stephen Grable, Complementary Integrative, Complementary Care Center in Jacksonville, the pharmacy in Merritt Island, which soon you'll be able to get compounding from all over the world with the pharmacy in Merritt Island. Mention my name, get 20% off. At Live Longer Medical, as you know, Lisa Geyer is helping us all look beautiful from the inside out. And Ground Therapy. You know, we're talking today about how to wash the brain and get all that gunk out and inflammation and all of that. We can do the same with ground therapy, which mimics the Earth's frequency of 7.83. So right now, you don't even see it, but I am compliant because right underneath my feet, I am feeling the effects of the earth with ground therapy. And finally, you too can become an enrolled student. So let's figure out different ways to support my sponsors the way that they are supporting the classroom. Also, I want to mention that you can learn more about Dr. Austin Perlmutter and his book that he co-wrote with his dad called Brainwash. And you can go to brainwashbook.com. You can also go to drperlmutter.com. Either way, it doesn't matter how you get there, just get there when you can. So thank you so much. This is such great, timely information. I just flew in from California yesterday, and between the 3 hours and the red eye, my brain is I know that it's needing some much more rest. And so in your book, you have 10 steps or 10 days to resetting your brain. So do you mind if we discuss those 10 things that we can do?
No, not at all.
Okay. So why don't you start with let's start with number 1. Day 1.
So let me give you just a general overview of this, though, before we jump into the specific days.
Okay.
The bottom line is the modern world is not set up for us to do well. It's set up for us to develop a chronic disease or 2 or 3, to be put on medications or 2 or 3 or a whole lot more. It's set up for us to be anxious, to be depressed, and to have poor relationships. So this is something we call disconnection syndrome, in that we are separated from these lives of wellness, of mental and physical health, of connections with other people. And what we wanted to do was take the most recent and also the best evidence for interventions we can make to try to basically wire our brains for connection. And that's what the 10-day plan is all about. It's about going through and giving the reader the best tools possible to allow him or her to reclaim their brains. And so the 10-day plan it's pretty intense if you do every part of it, but we think it's an awesome way to kickstart your brain into much better thinking. I would say if you're going to go do this plan, you can do these days in a different format than what we have listed here. But the basic idea of this plan is to go through these aspects of our lives that we need to work on. So this digital detox piece of it, where we kind of start the whole plan, is the idea of saying, how do you regain control over your digital interactions? How do you make sure that you are using technology and that it isn't using you? So we talked about this test of time, really essential. But what we talk about in the book, in addition to that, is how can you go through and set up your electronic devices so that you will reclaim your control over them? And that can be everything from going through and deleting apps that you're no longer using. It can be setting up the do not disturb when you're trying to have a meaningful amount of time spent working on your computer. It can be using airplane mode on your phone when you're trying to meditate or do other things. It's also to start getting some metrics, start understanding how much time are you spending each day on social media? How much screen time are you spending each day, each week? Because with that data, you're then able to track your progress. So again, this digital decompression detox, it's basically trying to allow you to reassert your command over your digital environment. And then again, the plan is laid out in a very specific way, and we think that is the best way of doing it. But we talk about in this plan how to engage empathy through gratitude. We talk in this plan about how to then lower narcissism in your life. These are things that we view as major problems with our ability to connect with other people. Empathy being essential in enabling us to have strong bonds with others, narcissism being the exact opposite of that. So we talk about strategies for building empathy through gratitude, things like doing a gratitude journal and really reflecting each day on a couple things we really care about. And then we go through some of the more nuanced pieces as to how do you start reclaiming your diet for a healthy brain, and not just for a healthy brain. I mean, my dad has been talking about a diet for a healthy brain for a long time. What we're talking about here is an inclusive diet that people around the world should be able to get on board with without it having to be 100% keto, 100% vegan, 100% paleo. We're talking about a diet that lowers inflammation. And the reason for that is because we've known for a long time that inflammation is a problem throughout the body. We've known for a good amount of time that inflammation is linked to neurodegenerative diseases like dementia. We've known for a smaller amount of time that inflammation is linked to depression, that inflammation may cause depression. All really good reasons to lower inflammation through eating a low inflammatory or an anti-inflammatory diet. The reason that we're so pumped about this in the book, though, is research now suggests that inflammation leads to worse decision-making. So this is really getting to the fundamental mechanism, potentially, of what's going wrong. If you start developing more inflammation, your decisions will be compromised, which will lead you then to eating the bad foods that you don't want to be eating, to becoming more reactive and yelling at your boss, potentially losing your job, to becoming more impulsive and withdrawing all your money from the stock market on a whim. And over time, these poor decisions are the things that may make it more likely that you develop these other diseases. So a diet that lowers inflammation is a core part of the 10-day plan. We also talk about exercise. We also talk about nature exposure, which turns out to be fundamentally important in allowing us to have an easy way of lowering inflammation, of lowering stress, and fostering healthy immunity, as well as just improving our overall wellness. And then we talk about meditation and mindfulness in this 10-day plan. And, you know, there's a lot of information out there as to how important meditation and mindfulness are. I think from a more spiritual perspective, there's a whole lot to get into there. But what we really want to emphasize in the book is if you have a mindful practice, and that can be a more traditional meditation, that can be deep breathing, that can even be prayer. These are things that allow us to get a little bit more insight into the way our brains are working and to set aside all of the crazy, hectic stress of the day-to-day life and to have a little bit of time carved out for ourselves. Incidentally, the reason that that's so important is full studies show that meditation or mindfulness practices help to wire our brains for the very things we care about. It's activating the part of the brain that lets us make good decisions. It's helping us to become more compassionate. It's helping us to feel more connected with nature. So all of this stuff is linked. And again, I know that's a lot of material. In the actual book, it's laid out much more clearly than that probably, but the idea is we've got to get off of this roller coaster of making poor choices, of being stuck in these chronic preventable diseases, being subjected to unnecessary mental health conditions like depression and anxiety. And we outline all of the ways that you can move from this system that is not helpful to you, this vicious cycle, and into a more healthy cycle. And that includes things, again, like exercise, like nature exposure, like meditation, like a digital detox, like eating a diet that lowers inflammation. And any of these things will be sufficient to get you started in making the changes to your brain that will set you up for a much better life.
Absolutely. The book is called Brainwash. And if you want a free copy of this book, just let me know by saying it on the in the comment section. Also send me a message that you want the book, because, it's important that we live in such a entitled society as well. It's now, this is what I want, and this is what and we sometimes stop and realize we don't work so much for what we want. And so I'm going to encourage you to, if you want a copy of this book, then make sure you write your name on the comment section. Just let me know in the comment section that this is what you want. Also, like and tag, this particular broadcast for your friends to watch as well. And we'll put your name in the winner's basket, and I will select how many books they're giving away, and I will let you know when you are the winner. And so, I love I wanted to ask you, because I've been doing a lot of research on grounding. With ground therapy, Clint Ober. I don't know if you're familiar with earthing and feeling that connection to the earth.
I'm peripherally aware of it. I wouldn't say that I've done a deep dive into that research yet.
It is amazing, and how the earth is nature's tool. It's an anti-inflammatory. It just helps remove inflammation. And when I discovered the ground therapy mats, it was a game changer for me, because I had just had surgery, and the inflammation from the scars and the flow and the impedance and all that, I got to see firsthand how the earth is the world's best anti-inflammatory medication. So being in nature is one thing, and it does, everything that helps us slow down. But the next would be putting our feet barefoot, because you said we've lost that connection with one another, but we've also lost our connection to the earth. We have so many protective gear like shoes and sneakers and, all these things that we have forgotten to put our hands in the soil and stick our feet in the ground. I love walking barefoot at the beach. And so those are so many different things that we can do for ourselves that help us, grow spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. And so I love the fact that you have so many different ways that we can adopt ourselves. But here's the thing. Many people will say, oh yeah, you said that many people don't follow their doctor's advice. And this is sound advice, very sound advice. So when I go to the gym, if I want to go to the gym the next day in the morning, if I don't put my clothes out, so that when I wake up, everything is there, I know I have no intention in going to the gym. It's just, I like to go to the gym. So let's talk about some of the ways that we can set ourselves up for success.
Absolutely. You make a really good point, which is that even though we know what we want to do, what we should be doing, there's this moment that comes up where we don't make the good decision. Mm-hmm. And something that I've realized is it doesn't make too much sense to focus on those moments as far as forcing yourself into the right choice. It just doesn't work, mm-hmm. because it's not as though you don't have the willpower. That's just not a helpful way of looking at it. Mm-hmm. So what we talk about in the book is if you wire your brain such that it makes it more likely for you to make good decisions, that's going to provide an amazing asset to you throughout your life. I would say, to your point about making things easy, there are these barriers to entry to certain things. So some people will sleep in their gym clothes so they know when they wake up in the morning, it's easy to get up and out the door.
Been there.
And what I like to think about, what I like to think about here is you've kind of got these different versions of yourself. So bear with me for a second. it's 10 p.m., you're sitting on your couch and you're watching TV. You know that in a few hours, you're going to have to wake up to either exercise or press the snooze button before work. And you care about that to some degree. Maybe not as much as you'll care later on. Versus that next morning, let's say it's 6 a.m., that alarm goes off, this is the time to exercise. You probably feel very different than you did last night at 10 p.m. when you click the button and press the next episode of the TV show. So there's this space in between the person we are right now when we're making our future decisions and the person we are in the future who actually has to deal with those choices.
Yeah.
And so what we talk about in the book is we need to have more empathy for this person tomorrow, this person in a week, this person in a month, basically doing what we would do for another person we care about. Turns out it's us, to help them be successful. So if you want to be nice to your future self, turn off the TV once you watch that episode and don't stay up late, because you know that tomorrow's self is going to be miserable and is going to be less likely to exercise. Similarly, if you want to help out your morning self who is going to struggle to get out of bed, you wear your gym clothes to bed, or put the gym clothes out so that they're the first thing you see in the morning. And this kind of also gets into the whole concept of habits and habit loops and starting to do the same routines over and over again so that your brain is automatically performing them. But I would just say for listeners, think about your future self as somebody you want to care about, as somebody you want to show empathy for. And that can even be the future self in 30 minutes after you eat that junk food. Think about how you're going to feel 30 minutes from now. And if you really want to look out for that person, maybe you don't make those destructive decisions.
You know, I like that. I like how you're looking at yourself as a third person. So many times we speak to a child with love and care and compassion, and we even change our tone of voice. But then when we speak to ourselves, we're so harsh and judgmental and cruel. And, you know, first it's the thought, then it's the feeling, then it's the action. As we know, many of us, we, like you said, our future self, our now, we have to set our future self in a place where we can lift them up. If we look at ourselves, if we detach ourselves, what else can we do to love ourselves? And I like, you know, I have fallen asleep with my gym clothes because I know that I'm going to be cutting it close. But it's that shutting down, finding, it's not even willpower. It's that we are being purposely controlled and manipulated.
Yeah, I would say again, the modern world is not set up for us to be successful, whether that's health, happiness, relationships. And, you know, one of the biggest concerns I have with this is when we don't follow through on the stuff we know we're supposed to be doing, we blame ourselves for it. And that creates stress, and that makes us more upset. And then it makes it more likely, like I said, for us to make poor decisions. So the game is rigged. If you go out to your grocery store, most of those foods are bad for you. So if you just randomly pick some foods off the shelf, and also, by the way, the most delicious foods off the shelf, and also the foods that are in the front of the store or at the checkout, you're going to be doing poorly. Like, this is just the way the system is set up. And so I think we need to transfer some of this energy that we've been putting into blaming ourselves and look at this system. And I'm not a fan of anger. I don't think anger is generally helpful, but to be aware that the cards are not dealt in your favor. The deck is stacked against you. And that's the place we need to start. It doesn't mean you can't be successful, but it does mean that you can't outsource your decisions to other people. You can't outsource your decisions to industry or pharma or any of these people who aren't necessarily lining up their incentives with yours.
Yeah.
Your incentives or your goals should be to live the most productive life of well-being where you can be the best version of you possible. But if you go out into the world and are unconscious of the surroundings, the environment, the information coming in, you're not going to do well at reaching that goal. And so we've got to be more cautious. We've got to pay attention to what's coming in, and we've got to make sure that the data that comes in and wires our brain is set up for us to be successful. And so I know we have this book where we talk about a lot of this stuff, but I would just implore anybody who's listening is just to become aware of this fact that The modern world is not set up for you to make good choices. And either you decide you want to take control of your brain and wire it for your success, or other people are going to do it for you. And when they do, chances are you will wind up like most Americans, who is struggling with these chronic preventable diseases and who is struggling with potentially preventable mental health conditions. As I mentioned, inflammation is a significant cause of depression. Anxiety is a condition that is significantly tethered to this part of the brain called the amygdala, which is activated by things like watching stressful news, which is activated by things like watching or looking at stressful social media. So we do have agency in this thing, but you've got to decide it's time to make a change.
I love it. And that's our choice. So I want to encourage you once again, the book is called Brainwash. We need to wash all that information out and replace it with some good, loving to yourself so that you can take your health and your brain back. Again, please, if you have any questions, write in the comment section your questions before we're going to do a little bit of a after party for those of you who are watching on listening on podcast. You're welcome to join us on facebook.com/Lillian's radio show so that you can be a part of the audience. Also, for those of you in the next 24 hours, anyone who watches this program will be able to be part of the giveaway for the book. I don't know, maybe there's 2-3 books, I don't know, but we'll figure that out. So just write your name down in the comments section. Let me know, send me a private message that you want to be a part of this as well, and tag a friend, like the broadcast, and I will put your name in the winners giveaway, and you can be a part. I'll let you know if you win. This is wonderful, very timely. I'm so excited that you were able to do this with your father, who is highly respected as well. And I know that, fruit doesn't fall that far from the tree, and sometimes the next generation fruit is much better than the original. So congratulations on this. And so for those of you, again, if you want to learn more about the book, you can go to brainwashbook.com or drperlmutter.com. And so there's a section in this book that has to do with food. And you have some great recipes on here. Let's talk about, I don't know how much time, we have 5 minutes left in the broadcast, probably less because I've seen the 5 minutes for a while. But I would love to, maybe when we're off the air, 2 minutes, when we're off the air and having our little teacher's pet party, you can share some of your favorite recipes. And
for sure,
the primary focus is to eat for your body and eat what's right for you. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, as I said before, we are so conditioned in this health world to get caught up in all the latest dietary trends. And there is a lot of science behind diets like the keto diet, for example. But I think that people can get really caught up in making sure they do it perfectly. And the most important thing when it comes to a healthy diet, you stick to the diet. So it's no use to me if you go keto for a week and then never do it again and go back to that unhealthy Western diet. When we in Brainwash talk about a diet we recommend, it is primarily a diet that emphasizes things that lower inflammation and cutting parts of the food chain out or parts of the diet out that increase inflammation. What that means is lowering your refined carbohydrates, lowering your added sugars, lowering your ultra-processed fats, which include vegetable processed oils. And then finally, we do make an emphasis on lowering the overconsumption of specifically animal protein, with the idea being that we need to cut out as much ultra-processed food from our diet as possible. And the majority of animal protein that is eaten in the United States is actually going through these supply chains that cause it to become ultra-processed and pro-inflammatory.
Well said. I am excited. Thank you so much for co-writing this with your dad, Dr. David Perlmutter. Again, if you want to win a copy of this book, you know what to do. So make sure that you write, "I want the book," in the comment section. And for the next 24 hours, I will wait, and then I'll put your name in the comment in the winner's basket. And hopefully you will be one of the winners of this book. Thank you, Dr. Perlmutter, for this information. It's so timely.
Thank you,
We've
Lillian.
lost our connection, and I think it's time to get reconnected. So thank you for doing your part in that. And for those of you who are tuning in, if you like, share this information. It's time to get connected. It is time to take our health back and our brain back. Please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Austin Perlmutter wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Okay, you know what to do. If you want a copy of this book, claim it. If you want your brain back, claim it. And so just write, I want the book in the comment section, and share this and like it and mention to a friend that this is out there now. This is such timely information. There's so many of us, Dr. Perlmutter, that mindlessly scroll. If we find ourselves in that situation because we gravitate towards what is comfortable, what is convenient sometimes. And so you had mentioned a tip on setting a timer. But what if the timer goes off and we snooze it? Mm-hmm. What are ways that we can get back? We lose that side. We want so many things, but we don't set ourselves up for success. And like you said, the way the industry is set up, the pharmaceutical industry wants everybody to be on some form of medication. The food industry feeds that desire for the pharmaceutical industry by making foods addictive so that we eat too much of it. So what are some of the things? I know we talked about some tips, but let's say we really want to become healthy and take our health back. We set our parameters, we set our clock, but then even then we let it go. We just hit the snooze and continue to scroll mindlessly. What are some ways that you can get back to remembering what we want?
Yeah, well, you hit a lot of really good points there. And I think to begin again with this idea of how are things set up? And I don't think that there are evil people at play here. I think that these companies are just doing what they can to maximize profit. And if that happens to mean putting out these addictive, unhealthy foods that happen to cause you to develop obesity, hypertension, heart disease, so be it, right? That's just kind of how they're set up. And if you are a social media company or an internet company or digital media company, you're not trying to ruin people's lives by addicting them to your product. Instead, you're just trying to keep eyeballs on the screen because that is how you generate profit. But unfortunately, it doesn't work out so well for us because it used to be that you could just go with the flow and figure things out as you go. But things have become so incredibly engineered to hijack our attention, to hijack our spending decisions, that you can't just go out into the wild and expect to do well anymore. And so what winds up happening is, even if you come up with a plan, for example, setting that timer when you're on social media, you're bound to fail some of the time. And the reason for it is you're going up against a juggernaut. You're going up against people who have spent their lives trying to make this technology as addictive as possible. So don't fault yourself for it. Look at that as part of the plan. I would say for me, I'm trying to not use as much social media, but sometimes I find myself in a moment on Instagram. It just happened. And there are two things I could do. One is to blame myself and say, I really messed up here. The other is to say, what actually happened? And I think it's much more helpful when you get led astray to pause and then say, what just went wrong? What were the things that went into this going the wrong direction? And so that might mean that the application was too readily available on your screen. And what that might mean then is that you either delete the application or hide it in a folder. So you can then take a step to make that failure less likely the next time. But I want us to get away from this idea of self-blame, because I don't think that it is actually as productive as people think it is. We then just feel terrible about ourselves. And we know that when we're stressed and feeling bad about ourselves, it makes us more likely to make poor choices. So we're all going to get derailed. That's absolutely fine. It's not a question of getting derailed. It's a question of, do you then make a change because of it? And I think we're all capable of doing that.
I remember a time when I would leave my home in the morning and I'd come home and I'd listen to my answering machine. If anybody tried to get a hold of me, I retrieved my message when I got home. I've said this many times that I am envious of anybody with a flip phone, because I remember that when I had the flip phone, or whenever, that was a simpler life. A phone was a phone. Now it's a camera, it's my email, it's my contacts, the phone is like our everything. We have a little mini computer with us everywhere we go. And so now it's the mindset that if you get a notification on Facebook, I've got to answer right away. If you get a message, I got to answer right away. If I can't, what can we tell ourselves when we have become such a instant gratification now kind of society where we think it can't wait?
That is such a good question. And what makes all of this so challenging is that we've tethered what we need to do or what we enjoy to these things that then have all these hooks to keep us on our phones, let's say. And it doesn't mean that I don't check my email on my phone. That's a great thing. It's helpful if I'm, off in a coffee shop somewhere. I didn't bring my computer. But then your games are also on your phone. And then because you can check your email, you keep doing it compulsively.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I found really helpful is to try to align yourself with other people who are interested in making a change. If you are the only person in your group of friends who's trying to cut back on their social media time, or they're emailing on their phone, or whatever it might be, and you go out with your friends and you're sitting at dinner and everyone is on their phone, you're going to have a really hard time sitting there and not taking out your phone. So don't make this unnecessarily hard on yourself. And just like when we talk about how to increase your chances of exercising, I say build a team. Build a team of like-minded people and help keep each other accountable, because it's not set up to be easy. That's a clear truth. In the modern world, it is not set up to be easy for you to put down your phone. It's exactly the opposite. Mm-hmm. So if you do what most people do and say, hey, I feel like I'm on my phone too much, you think maybe I should be on my phone a little less, but next thing you know, some sort of a ping is going to get you back on your phone.
Yes,
You'll be out with friends and they'll be on their phones. It's like smoking. If everyone around you is smoking, you're not going to be able to quit. So when it comes to making these changes for your social media or your digital consumption in general, you got to find some people who are willing to keep you accountable. And it is tough. Don't get me wrong. If you want to be on the grid and participating, and, again, we're having this conversation online.
Sure.
The couple things that I would say to somebody, which are good places to start, is to try to keep your phone in another room when you're sleeping. And the reason for that is most Americans reach for their phone in the first 15 minutes after waking up. So that number is around 80% for adults, and it goes to upper 80s for teenagers, not unexpectedly. Mm-hmm. But that also means that the phone is right there when you go to sleep. So most people are going to be taking out their phone and checking things right before they go to sleep. That's a problem for a couple of reasons. One reason is it keeps your mind awake. It keeps you stressed potentially, and stress is damaging to your brain. Mm-hmm. The other thing is it's blue light exposure right before bed. And blue light blocks the production of the sleep hormone melatonin, which is why studies have shown that people who look at things like e-readers right before bed don't sleep as well. So again, creating that buffer, even if it's just to start at the end of the day and first thing in the morning where you have some screen-free time, is a wonderful place to get started. And then, as we discussed earlier in the podcast, there are a lot of other things you can do to just make your phone less addictive and set your computer up so that it's a little bit more helpful to you.
I love it. I love it. And I like this book. I really do. And I want to encourage all of you to, if you want a free copy, if you want to pay for your book, go to Amazon.com. What are other places where they can get the book?
It's in basically every bookstore that I've been to. Okay. So if you go to Barnes & Noble, if you go to Costco, Target, BJ's, all the places.
And you can say that you want the copy of the book, put it on the comment section, send me a private message, let me know that you would like this book as well, and I will put your name. Everybody who commented today is going in the winner's basket. And for those of you who would like to share this with your friends, make sure that, create a group of friends that maybe you call each other. Just call each other. We've lost this connection with one another. And so make sure that you let me know that you want a copy of this book, and everybody's name will be put into the winner's basket, and your name will be selected within 24 hours. And let's start making a plan, because there's nothing like human interaction. And Dr. Perlmutter, I'm really concerned about this next generation, because I remember waiting to retrieve my messages. And now with the next generation, our grandchildren, my grandchildren, and the generations to come, it's like, how are we going to be able to communicate with one another? These skills are so important. And so maybe we can make some time for one another as well.
Yeah, and I would even recommend something I've been doing more recently is talk to random people, strangers. It doesn't have to be some weird, dangerous thing in the Central Park at midnight. What I'm saying is you go to a coffee shop, talk to the person who's serving you your coffee for a minute. We can all do so much for ourselves with just a little bit more interpersonal interaction.
Yeah.
Now, I would say there are times where it's definitely the best thing to call somebody on the phone. And when I was living out in Oregon and my parents were in Florida, we would FaceTime all the time. That was wonderful. It was a way to connect with them.
Mm-hmm.
But as a general rule of thumb, you want to have the least amount of stuff in between you and the other person. So if you can meet up with them in person, that's great. If you can talk to them on the phone, that's good. If you can video chat with them, that's good. But once we start getting into these environments like social media and communicating with each other in that way, there are a lot of other factors between you and that other person. And there's a lot of reason to suggest that you would get your attention, your time swept away for something else. Mm-hmm. So for example, when you're talking to somebody on the phone, it's just the two of you. You could be distracted, but there's no one who's going to jump on and say, hey, by the way, looking at your browsing history, I think that you would really like this new perk. That's the way it's set up when you go on social media. There are all of these competing interests for your time. So it doesn't mean you can't have a wonderful interaction with somebody else on social media, but know that there are active algorithms in place to take what you're putting in there and use it for their own interest, which hopefully isn't the case when you're on the phone. I don't think anyone's listening in, but I'm sure people
Alexa.
have different ideas of that.
Alexa. Well, thank you so much. This is great food for thought, because we're getting hijacked. Our brain is getting hijacked, and we've got to stop the fast pace and feeding our amygdala, making it bigger and bigger and bigger, so that everything is a disaster, crisis. And it's nice to have that peace and calm. So thank you so much for returning us back to basics, basically, is what I feel that this conversation has reminded me even more about how much I long for that eye contact, human interaction. And more I'm resenting my having to go online and having to I just want that connection with people. So thank you for bringing us aware of that. Would you like to add one more thing?
Well, I'm just going to say, here we are connecting with the internet, with technology. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing, but we've got to be conscious of how we're doing it. And so go ahead, use social media. Go ahead, use your computer. Go ahead, watch TV. Those things are okay, provided you're using it in a conscious and beneficial way. And if you're not, now's the time to really take a step back and make sure that you make the necessary changes so that you are getting the most benefit from your life and not allowing other people to benefit from it.
Well said. And I'll let that be the final word. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching today on Facebook at Lillian's radio show. And even those of you who are watching on YouTube, because right now podcast isn't being recorded, but if you're watching on YouTube, you too can participate in the giveaway of the book. So until tomorrow, we're going to be talking to Clint Ober for ground therapy and learning how to connect to the earth. So there's about connection. It's all about connection, so that depression and feeling lonely and separated and isolated goes away from our life. So we will see you soon. Thank you again, Dr. Perlmutter, for your wisdom and for co-writing this book with your dad.
Thank you, Lillian.
Okay, we'll see. I'm going to stop the live stream and